You see. All right, we are recording. Tip it down a little bit. Let's just CPL library that on this automatic. It'll pop up down there. So disconnect and then try to reconnect, and it should. Just try to connect. And it should pop up. There we go. Ooh, cool. Thank you. Nah. Thanks. Take one of these. This is like 15. Well, that's cold. I brag on y'all, man. It's cold out of the house.
Sorry, I didn't bring much.
Hey. Okay.
What's it?
It could be more center. You just a little bit, so it could be a little more center. That's all. This way. No, the other one. That one. Yeah, there you go. There you go. And then when you come up, you just we'll move out the way. That way you can talk directly to the folks if people come in. It's recorded.
I'll sit on your lap.
All right, cool. Okay.
Okay, the time is 6:15. We're going to begin our particular meeting, and at this moment, we're going to have a. CPD's walking in the door. Good evening. Okay, we're gonna have a moment of silence before we begin. Okay, thank you. All minds clear. Let's have a roll call and establish the determination of form. Beverly Rivers.
DeAndre Rivers.
Array Karen Winters. Okay, we have a form. We have all councilors present, and we also have our brother Isaiah Brooks present as well, who is an augment of our services here. That being stated, let's do an approval of last month's minutes. Welcome. So I'll go briefly just go through last month's meeting, was on November 7th, 2023, and I apologize, I don't project my voice as loud as I should. I'm gonna work on that. 5300 West Chicago Avenue, we started at 6:06. All councilors present, the public comment included Commander Morse introducing officers who were in attendance and expressed that they were not there for barriers, but to basically be a voice on someone like a listening tour. So the question was raised by people of are we Chicago employees or volunteers, so there was an educational piece that was established as to what the councils actually do. So the community update from the specialist of DeAndre Rudis expressed that the district council increased its attempts to increase positive public safety. And recently the districts 15 and 25 had joined in the Know Your Right seminar with the ACLU. And we talked about the impact for equality and first defense legal aids, and they discussed ongoing issues. The district council received some feedback from members of the community in regards to the transparency with the officer's presence. That's one reason why Commander Morse gave that disclaimer of we're not here to stifle, we're here to listen. So we're trying to get to a listening circle established. Something that would, whatever you would like to discuss, you could fully express accountability issues. And we have an open option of, asking CPD to give us that time. Our position is not to highlight negative impact, but to figure out the solutions of the negative encounters and build a positive relationship. Nominator committee member Karen Winters also talked about what the nominating bodies were in the 22 districts. Each police district has 3 members, and we educated the public on how we work with how she works with the other 21 nominators, and was looking for permanent community commissions. So there was a lot of positions that were highlighted, jobs that were available going on the table, applications. She encouraged people to apply for them, and the chair basically stated that I'm just here to augment and do the administrative fiduciary duty that's particularly needed. So the minutes from the 12th was tabled, and they included, excuse me, let me go back. Discussions from Deputy Director Damon Smith and Community Outreach Isaiah Brooks were our guest speakers to explain their roles with CCPSA. Community Officer, I'm sorry, I'm about to mess this up. Jill Campaglia was awarded the Over and Beyond Award for her impact in the seniors of the community, and Mrs. Lillian Drummond was our awarded Legacy Award member for attorney. She was a Centurion. We honored her as well. The District Council wants to plan an open house in the spring season so that the community can meet the officers who police the district in 15th District. We don't want to only have an interaction with police when it's punitive. We also want to see the police in other infinity groups and other programs. So that being stated, are there any corrections to our minutes for November 7th? Okay, so you can have a motion that they be adopted.
I motion that we accept the minutes from November 7th meeting.
Second. Okay, it has been motioned by Councilor Rudis and seconded by Councilor Winters that we adopt the minutes without corrections as they were read. Thank you for your time. Sorry, I missed that. I did not bring the gavel, so this is going to be it for tonight. So that being stated, let's now have the District Council's update. Let's start with either.
So I'll start. So my name is DeAndre Rudis. I am the Community Engagement Specialist for the 15th Police District Council. My role is essentially the liaison between police and community. So I really help to bridge the gap when communication, there seems to be barriers between it. I also connect with community in the regard of any public safety or policing concerns that they may have. I also help with the location of organizations or other resources that can really be a positive aid in both public policing, public safety and police accountability. And so to that end, some of the things that I've done most recently in this past month is I connected with a member of the community who had experienced one of our many pretextual stops. That is an issue here in the 15th District. And I was able to get him connected with the folks from Impact for Equity as well as the ACLU so that he could continue to work with them through those concerns. We would hope in the future when things like that happen, we can also bring the police officers, because the nature of this work calls on for us to use restorative justice practices. And so at some point, after things get settled with the individual from the community, I would like to be able to work with the Chicago Police to try to figure out what we can do to better aid the relationship development piece that, again, that we are all about. The other thing is, as it was brought up in the minutes, I am currently looking to go on listening tours in the community. So if there are any issues that are prevalent as it relates to public safety and or police accountability that people don't want to raise because of officers are present in our meeting, then I will be available for you so that we can connect on the sidebar and we can figure some things out, such as in our last meeting, we had a community member who didn't want to share outright, but she did share numerous cards with me that detailed some issues she was having in the community. And so I was actually on vacation, so I apologize I didn't get a chance to share that out with the officers just yet, but I have those will be uploaded at some point, saying names and everything so people could feel protected. One of the things that we found is that community members don't always want to come forward because they don't feel like their identity will be protected. And so in this way, we'll be able to, it'll be just myself going back and forth with the officers in that particular case. One of the things that I do regularly is produce our newsletter for the 15th District. Generally, they come out roughly every 2 weeks after our meeting. Again, this is probably one of the only times that I have dropped the ball, and probably will, because I was on vacation. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. So I didn't produce our newsletter yet, but I will. I promise before the week is over, I will have the newsletter that documents what happened in our meeting from November. And I will have that available for folks. The way that you can subscribe to the newsletter is when you sign in upon interest. We take stock of that and we are maintaining a database of people that come to the meeting, so we'll be able to email that out to you. There's other methods if you would like for me to say text it to you. You just have to let me know though. That way I can create some sort of thread or something that I can send that to people directly. The last thing that I want to mention is, as was stated in the last minutes that were read, we did a Know Your Rights seminar in November that contained the ACLU, Impact for Equity, and the First Defense Legal Aid, just trying to make sure that people understand their rights, especially as it relates to driving. Again, pretextual stops is one of the large causes of concerns for community members here in the 15th district. And so we wanted to provide some information on how people can go about reaching the proper authorities in case they feel like they were a victim of pretextual stops, as well as other instances when they feel like their rights have been violated. So what we want to do is kind of make that a quarterly thing. And so I am going to plan with other entities that would like to partner with me in February and figure out another Know Your Rights type of forum. One thing that came up was trying to see if there's some way we can educate our community on the best way to interact with law enforcement. And so if anybody know of any organizations that can help with something like that, I would be very much so open, because I think we have to have two sides to the coin, and we can't just look at everything one way. So very much so open to that. And we'll also again have that second Know Your Rights seminar or forum take place in February. The location is undecided yet. So that's it for my updates.
Good evening. So before I get into announcements, I want to toot my horn a little bit. Earlier in, what is this, October, I was awarded the contribution to oversight by the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement.
Nice.
And who they are, this is an organization that wants to create a community of support for independent civilian oversight entities that seek to make their local law enforcement agencies, jails, and prisons more transparent, accountable, and responsible to the communities they serve.
Super dope.
I also received my fellowship from Northwestern Law School. It was a program it was called the Boyd and Barnett Fellowship. It was for community organizers, activists, and law students to learn how to utilize the legal system as we are doing our organizing work. And it was named after Rekia Boyd, who many of y'all in Chicago know. She was shot and killed by police, I believe in 2014. And Mr. Barnett was the husband of Ida B. Wells. He was the first lawyer to graduate, African-American attorney to graduate from Northwestern Law School. And next month I will be going to Northeastern Illinois University to work on my bachelor's degree in police reform. So yes, I've been busy. Now announcements, things you should know, and all of these things we're gonna put on our newsletter. We still gotta get our Facebook page together so we can house information. But again, that community commissioner's application is going live on January 8th. And folks have a whole month until February 7th if they want to submit an application. Right now, we have the interim body, and we're looking for new members to serve on the permanent body. Well, we call it permanent, but it's staggered 2-4 years. So any interested persons, please let me know, because I'm, the nominator. And right now, it's like pulling teeth. So any interested person, please have them get in contact with me. Also on tomorrow, City Council will be voting on the arbitration ruling. So this is where, instead of police officers who commit misconduct instead of them going before the Chicago Police Board, they will be able to have an arbitrator, meaning the public will not be made aware of what the findings are, what the conversations are, what the legalities are until after the fact. And so many district counselors, as well as many community organizers and activists, are calling for our city council members to not to vote this down. I have a script and phone numbers of aldermen. If you would like to call one, it would have to be first thing in the morning, like 9 o'clock, because I think city council goes up at 10. But we definitely want to get in touch with Emma Mitz, Jason Urban, Alderman Telefaro, and Alderman Scott, because they're in the 15th district. And if you want me to send you the numbers and the script, if you just take my card and send me a text message, I will send you the script and the phone numbers, if you could call them in the morning. Because this would kind of undermine all of the oversight work that we're trying to do now as a community. And we don't want that to happen. And the first community conversation with our new superintendent, Larry Snelling, will be on January 23rd at 6:30 at Putak Center. I may not be saying that right. PUITAK Center. And I wrote the address down. I'm gonna make sure DeAndre puts that in the newsletter, because I don't see where I wrote the address down.
Look it up.
Putak, PUITAK. I know it's on Wentworth, like 2100, 2200 something on Wentworth. So that is coming up
2216? Yeah.
2216.
South Wentworth.
2216 South Wentworth. And so they haven't, we just got that information today from CCPSA, and they're working on a flyer. As soon as we get it, we'll share it out, and DeAndre gonna put that information in the paper for us. And one more thing. So for the community members, when there are policies and general orders that are being reviewed, the Chicago Police Department puts them up for public comment. And right now, they have a racial equity action plan that is up for public comment. And they want us to please consider providing feedback. I have to get the date, and that'll go in the newsletter too, but when it goes up, it's normally up for 30 days. And this is important that we have an opportunity to do this, because this is rare. Like, it's not many other departments that allow community members to weigh in on their policies. And so we have been afforded that opportunity, and we should really take advantage of it. So I'm sorry, I'm scrambling. I just started a new job, and so I don't have the time I normally have. And we had an event today that was outside. It was freezing out there. And I think that's all the updates I have.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Winters. Okay, Councilor Earls, I'm just gonna basically tell you that on the flip side, we always get together and we talk about what's wrong. Let me tell you what's right. 15th District Panic Parade and tree lighting on a couple weeks ago. It was outstanding. This is indicative of what happens when the police department, organizations, and the public, the community comes together and for the sake of unity. So not only was Mayor Johnson present, there was a lot of other politicians present, but most of all, the atmosphere in the rain, in the cold, was quite interesting. And I don't like being cold. I've been frostbitten in my previous profession about 4 times. My extremities are just very sensitive, but I didn't mind being out there. So I'm truly encouraged to know that we're onto something great here. We've got the best district in the world, period, hands down. I'll say that even to Commander DeVito Ward is a friend of mine. I tell 11 ain't got no 15. So she needs to get it together. So that being stated, I just have to buy her another glass of wine or something that she'll forget I said. So, but that being stated, all minds clear with that. Let's move on to our next agenda piece. So, at this point, we want to hear from you, actually. We have comment cards and we're going to encourage you. Use those particular postcards. If you have something to say, by all means, write it down, because this is the forum. This is the platform that we get a chance to hear what is your concern. We can only do the job that you basically encourage us to do. You can have us, we don't know what's important to you, so let's prioritize the community and do what's needed. So those green baskets have pens, those green baskets have cards. Help yourself to anything that's present. And, let's find out what's going on there.
Somebody just have in.
Oh, got it. So if there's, by the way, if anyone is watching online, Red Eye, and they have a question they want to put on the board, by all means, let us know. If there's anyone in the audience, good to see our president of the NAACP, President Brinson. Welcome, sir. Come on now, Austin Town Hall. The church, but church is a good place to end up, even if you're looking for something else. You're in a great place, sir.
Service at 7 o'clock.
So we need this prayer. Outstanding, outstanding. Is there anyone that has anything you want to bring to this particular forum at this time?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Myself first. My name is Philip.
Hi, Philip.
It's my daughter Zoe, my wife Joy.
Hi, Joy.
You're not from this district. We actually live in Burbank, which is south of here.
We have residents available.
So I do have a question, which is when you were talking, sir, I just wrote this down. It's kind of like just asking, how do we take action if we have been convicted of pre-sexual stop? So what's kind of the next step? What are some of the next steps to take?
Good question.
Well, one of the things that we have, especially on our newsletters, we have a survey that folks can take to tell us about how they feel about public safety and policing here in the 15th district. And in fact, I encourage folks to take the survey because we would like to track our progress. The survey is a very short survey. It's maybe 6 questions or so, and it really will be able to help us to determine our effectiveness as a district council. Obviously, we would like for things to increase by the time these 4 years are up for us. Secondly, we have a how do you call it, like a comment code section? Yeah, it's QR, but both of them are QR codes. I'm just trying to think of the best way to put it. Like, we have tell us your concern, you know what I mean? And that goes directly to us so that we can see it. And I would say if a person, either they want to drop a comment related to either public safety or police accountability, it goes directly to us and we can see it. And so like the gentleman that I met on the street while handing out flyers for the meeting, last month's meeting, he ended up following up with me like a week later, and we were just having a discussion about what happened. Now, he had already gone through the process of reaching out to COPA and other authorities that helped with that process. But he said that it was stagnant at that point. So he asked, how could we help? And then I got in touch with Joy, and then I have connection to ACLU, and I put him in touch with those individuals because they're the ones that really help with that. So, you can go about it one or two ways, which is to reach out directly to one of us, and then we'll start the process by connecting to the resources that we know are available, or you can start the process yourself. And then if you get hung up somewhere, you can reach out to us so we can continue, because that's what we were elected for. We were elected to be able to help cut through some of the minutia, that goes on when dealing with government. So hopefully we can serve that role well, but I would say you just got to get in touch with somebody. That's the best way, I would definitely say you should get in touch with us first, because that's what we're elected for, and we have the relationships. So
Does that answer your question?
You know what, it sort of does. I think what I was looking out for was some kind of system or process that's been put in place already. Now individual relationships are great, but for folks who don't understand how to reach like certain people or who to reach, is there like some kind of process, some standing process, that's okay, the first thing you do is report to this.
Right.
And then you should hear back at this date or this time, that's sort of what I was.
Oh, okay, yeah. Nope, not, and I'm only saying no because so far we've only had one of those type of situations. The statistics show that this is happening more often than not over here in the 15th district, but we've only had one person come forward to tell us this was an issue. And we've been elected since May, and that was the only person. So until we really can understand the extent of it, we really can't put anything in place because we don't know. I mean, and that's not to say we shouldn't be proactive about setting up something because now we do have one person that has come forward. But to this point, we hadn't had anyone, and this is the first time we're going through it. And so honestly, because we're not the subject matter experts and the folks with impact for equity, as well as the ACLU is, we should probably get with them and then try to figure that out so we can understand the best way to go about it. Because again, he had already reached out to Copeland, right? And we understand that that's one of the offices that deal with it because he had gotten his camera footage, but one of the things he's hung up on is not being able to get the footage that he believes shows the entirety of the incident versus what he said Copa produced for him to show like one side of things. And so we don't know, what I mean, what the whole situation will look like until we can look at all of the video. And the last thing I'll say, and then my colleagues can answer as well, is we are also learning how to navigate the systems because a lot of this is new to us as well. And so when we bring in folks from different bodies, we've had COPA come in, we've had, we have not had the ACLU yet, but moving forward, we'll have these different organizations to come in. They are educating us as well about these processes, so we are learning as we're going about. And again, most of us in these positions are newly elected and probably had never interacted with these bodies. And so we are learning. So that's the only thing.
And just for context, I'll say, my wife does work for Impact.
Right.
So I'm asking this questions more so because this room is really light.
Yeah.
The folks who need to answer that question are not sitting here right now.
Right.
So they don't know who to reach out to. So
right.
What I'm thinking about is some easy way for people who don't attend meetings like this or even know that they exist.
Yeah.
To get that information.
Yeah.
So that's the concept.
And the only reason I'm explaining so much is because we're recording the meeting right now. All of our meetings are recorded. So folks that don't attend, they can always go on YouTube and look at these videos and play them back. Even when we did the seminar with the FDLA, ACLU and Impact for Equity, that was recorded too and uploaded online as well. So that's one of the things. Now, we don't have a Facebook page, which we could directly send this to yet because again, that's gonna be a role in trying to man that thing. And so, but we will set it up, you know what I mean? And all of the information will be contained there. The other thing that we've done too is created a Google Drive that are full of resources. So when folks do have these issues, so say we get with the ACLU Impact for Equity and we figure out the way that a person should go about doing this, then we'll just make a quick one-pager for them, throw them up in our Google Drive where all our resources are. And if they have an issue, then they'll be able to find it there. So we keep a bunch of different resources, such as organizations we've connected with, as well as in meetings when the officers bring up something that's new to us, like we didn't know about trespass affidavits. That's in there. We didn't know about there was some other things. I can't remember, I'm sorry. But these things,
Like noise ordinance.
the noise ordinance, thank you. Noise ordinance. Things that people bring up, that bring to us, we're like, okay, cool, check. We need to put that in the, so we have something like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Great question. Thank you. Anyone else? Can we, you wrote that down. Can we have it, please, when you're done?
Yeah.
But I will write it.
You're so kind. So thank you very much. Anyone else? No?
I do want to add too, one of the things about our last meeting that was a win for us in the district in general is that we had a person who talked about coming to one of our past meetings and the community members over there talking about some issues that arose. That was one of the issues that warranted us finding out what trespass affidavit was. because that was some issues with that. And the officers went right after that meeting and started doing some work on that block. And those community, one of those community members that live on the block reported in our last meeting that that was something that he really appreciated, and he really commended the officers on doing that. So the reason why we have public comment sections like this is so that folks can actually talk about what the issues are while we have officers present, so that they can go and handle the issues, you know, like they were assigned to do. So do we just want to put that out there? Yeah, camera too.
Outstanding. Well, what you didn't know, Philip, is first of all, any other public comments before we go forward? What you didn't know is that the first person to ask a question was going to get a bid. Ah, you weren't,
Yeah,
you were not tipped off on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that being stated, Council Winters is going to give you the mail gift that we have. We were prepared if it was mail or female. So therefore you get a gift today for me, and that was a very important question. So now you gave us some homework. So we appreciate that. Enjoy.
Let me see. So, Sergeant, Petrosonis, we generally ask our officers to speak, because you wanna?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we know, so the commander is sick today. He generally has been in all of our meetings since we've been elected, but he is sick. And, Sergeant Petrosonis, did you wanna add anything, from you all side, anything?
No, Sergeant Petrosonis, DPO Sergeant, District Coordination Officer Sergeant. So we basically handle anything from quality life complaints all the way to shot ladder, shooting, robbery, follow-up. So, but, if any issues that you would have, I mean, obviously at our side, you can always, if you have a complaint, you call the district station, come into the district, and you can speak with the supervisor, you can take those complaints there. If people don't feel comfortable, we also then obviously COPA and report. I mean, but if you come with a complaint, I mean, we will take that complaint and have it about, you know, channel it off to wherever we need to go. So with us too, obviously, I mean, you would have something absolutely great to us, and it will get addressed. Immediately, there will be a number of signs and investigation also.
Philip, this was in Chicago. This happened in Chicago.
It did.
Yeah.
It happened in Chicago.
Because this is also new for us, like, right, our district council roles, so we're still trying to figure out just, you know, like, just the flow of who even on our end, who we connect with,
Right.
who we talk to.
Right.
Cause it's challenging sometimes trying to get through these systems and get responses from this system.
Right.
So, you know, we are still working on, you know, so many things, it's so new. But there is a lot of conversation around it, and we probably should come back next month, because Impact for Equity will be here with us.
That's what she's doing.
Oh, she's gonna be a speaker next
Yeah,
month?
let's do it.
Oh,
No,
okay.
what's-
This,
Yeah.
oh, wait, I thought you said it was in January.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Okay, well, segue.
Yeah, so no worries. So one of the things that we do, we have what we like to call grassroots spotlight, and where we highlight organizations that's doing work in public safety and police accountability. And so, this month, we have Joy with Impact for Equity to talk a little bit about the work that they do, especially around pretextual stops. So Joy, you wanna, we'll come around this way, because it's recorded.
Presentation, am I gonna show that this more, or should I just?
I don't know how you gonna do it with the Zoom thing. You might have to just talk us through it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Joy Mobio. I serve as the policy strategist on the criminal legal systems team at Impact for Equity. And I'm also a member of the Pretty Move Coalition, which is an alliance of community and advocacy organizations, really working to create a safer, more racially equitable system for traffic safety. I've met with DeAndre on a couple of occasions to talk to him. Also we met with you, Adam, and other members of the commission as well. But we at the Pretty Move Coalition, we basically analyzed over 4.6 million stops over 19 years. Through a variety of public data sources like the CPD department, the Office of Emergency Management, the Illinois Secretary of State Office. And basically, we compiled some data based on a report that's called A New Vehicle for Stop and Frisk. It was released in 2021. But basically, we found 3 alarming issues from the data that we collected. One, we found that since 2015, when the CPD into a settlement agreement with ACLU, the number of traffic stops has dramatically increased. We also noticed that majority of the stops that have taken place, last year there were 511,000 stops. And majority of those stops have been stops for minor violations like broken headlight, tail light, or a lack of a registration plate. We also noticed that these stops have not improved traffic safety or public safety in general. And then the last piece, the most important piece, is a lot of these stops have disproportionately impacted Black and Brown communities and have caused a lot of harm and also trauma in Black and Brown communities. I would love to show you guys the PowerPoint. We actually have some research specifically for the 15th district, if I can go into that. It is a lot of data, so I am going to reference it and as I present it. Let me go. And all of this information is also available on our website. It's free, 2, moveshy.org. And we have a thorough presentation on this. We have 2 reports that we put out about traffic stops. And then we also have a couple of letters that we sent to the CCPSA. We sent to our recommendation up to CPD as well. And we also created a public dashboard that basically shows like how pretextual stops impact each police district in the city of Chicago.
Mhm.
And so for the 15th district, it's coming up now. So we basically started off by, within this public dashboard, we basically ranked how each district is impacted by pretextual stops on a number from 1 to 25. And basically, and that's the number of districts we have. And District 15 ranks number 4 with the highest number of traffic stops from 2015 to 2021. Estimated driving population in this district is 71% Black. We have 8.71% white, and we have 18.75% that is Latinx. And the demographics of those being stopped are 83% Black, 4% white, and 11% that are Latinx. We also, within the data, we show how the number, like the grand number of like traffic stops being done from 2015 to 2021. And for District 15 in 2015, there were 4,588 stops, and each year they continue to increase. In 2021, there were 22,853 stops. So just giving you a guiding line of like how stops have continued to increase over the years since CPD into a settlement agreement about stop and frisk. And so in this time, Latinx drivers are 1.2 times more likely to be stopped than white drivers. And Black drivers in this district are 2.3 times more likely to be stopped than white drivers as well. I'm also going to just go into some other key data points. I really talked about like majority of these stops have been because of minor violations. What we see that the number 1 reason that folks are being stopped for is unlit or broken headlight or tail light. And that came in at 31.13%. Next was failure to have a valid or properly displayed registration plate, 22%. Failure to stop at a stop sign was 11%. And more stops were like incidents that can actually cause harm or like dangerous, reckless driving. of like reckless driving or DUI was at 0.19%. A license violation was at 0.58%. Speeding was at 1.76% of the number of stops, within this time period. I think it's also important to note, let me go back real quick. And I'll make sure to share this information, so afterwards you can share the presentation with everybody. All right, so, another key finding that I talked about was how these stops have not actually, ended in improving public safety. What we found is, I guess another tactic is that, what we've heard, we've had conversations with CPD and also talked to them about this report. And oftentimes what we hear, we also heard this from Superintendent Snelling, that the reason why these stops are being done is to curb crime and to stop violence. But what we see is that that is just not true. In 2022, only 3.4% of traffic stops resulted in a citation, which is far below the rate of other cities with large police departments. New York City cited drivers in 77% of stops in 2015, and Houston also cited drivers in 52% of stops in 2021. We've had a lot of conversations with aldermen as well around this, and specifically a few aldermen that are former police officers as well. Things that we've been hearing is, you know, the reason why we don't cite officers, I guess like the notion that to cite is so that we can actually stop people from even participating in violating like these minor traffic violations, right? If it's really to curb violence or to make our roads safer. By no means is the Freedom Move Coalition saying that we need to cite more. But I think the point is, what we've heard from other aldermen and police is that they don't cite drivers doing these minor violations. It's because they know that community members can't afford the bill, and they're trying to create community with Chicagoans around this. However, I guess I won't speak for every Chicagoan, but I guess our stance is that there are more efficient ways of actually conducting community engagement with civilians rather than citing them. I'm sure instead of saying, I guess like Chicagoans would rather not have community engagement and increase community engagement by an officer stopping them and pulling them over, but having actually holistic approaches to actually improve their public safety and create that relationship. And I guess another tactic of why traffic stops have not been an effective tool is that less than 1% of traffic stops in 2022 actually resulted in the recovery of illegal contraband, such as drugs, alcohol, or weapons. And about 0.5% of stops reported inventory drugs or drug paraphernalia. And that's across more than 511,000 stops. And only 0.52% of these stops resulted in the recovery of a firearm. Our coalition, we also released a report last year that talked about the need for more transparency in CPD's data, because it was unclear when we were analyzing this data of like why those firearms were even being recovered. So was it because they were their registration was expired? Was it because it was a murder weapon? Was it because it was being illegal transported? And so we also are asking for more clarity around like why are those firearms being recovered? We also see that the percentage of traffic stops resulted in an arrest has decreased since 2016 as well. And so in 2016, 9% of traffic stops resulted in an arrest. And now last year in 2022, 2.02% of stops resulted in an arrest. And across the board, this is harming Black and brown communities. Black drivers are 6 times more likely to be stopped. And this is from 2015 to 2021, Black drivers were at least twice as likely to be stopped in over 72% of police districts compared to white drivers. And Black drivers were 6 through 10 times more likely to be stopped compared to white drivers when accounting for their population. We also see that across the city, Latinx drivers are 2 times more likely to be stopped than white drivers in 73% of districts from 2015 to 2021. And this disparity for brown drivers was the largest in police districts in the downtown area and also in the near north side. When I think I guess another point that a piece of our analysis that we did that I think really drives home the point around like the disparity of traffic stops is that there was a veil of darkness test that we also did that basically compared how are Black and brown drivers affected by traffic stops in the daytime and at nighttime. And what we found was that Black and brown drivers were less likely to be stopped at night, and white drivers were more likely to be stopped at night. And so our hypothesis is that police officers weren't able to tell whether the person was Black or white during this time, when it was Black at night and day, night and day. And there's racial disparities all across the board. In arrests, in use of force, over 96 of uses of force are against people of color. We also see that racial disparities in consent searches as well. Given the history of policing with communities of color, oftentimes consent to search is not often voluntary because of the nature and I guess like the historical content of interaction with police and with civilians. And at the end of the day, Black and brown drivers are trying to make it home all day. And I think too, another piece of that is lack of education too, of knowing your rights, of saying like no. But again, that piece of like, I'm just trying to make it home, I don't want any trouble. We also have heard a lot of stories throughout the campaign of police basically saying, you know, if you don't allow me consent to search, I'm gonna have to pull you out of the car and handcuff you, and giving more opportunity for use of force and violence to happen. And so, so people consent. So another key point. And so what is the Free to Move Coalition? How are we advocating to address this issue? We are proposing a 3-pronged policy proposal that will help to reduce racially targeted traffic stops and actually make a equitable system for public safety and traffic safety. One, we want to eliminate pretextual stops altogether. And this policy will end the use of pretextual stops. Last year, we saw that the Los Angeles Police Department implemented a version of this policy, and the early data showed that there was a reduction in stops for minor offenses, and it also decreased minor stops for Black drivers. The second piece that we're proposing is limiting low-level stops. And so this will limit just a set of low-level traffic violations that have little to no impact on roadway safety. And these are all of the major stops that we've seen from our data. So unlit, you can't pull anybody over for an unlit or headlight or tail light, no registration plate. And what we've seen in the past is that instead, because it is important to have a headlight and your registration plate, we understand that, but is it more important than harming a civilian's life? What we've seen other jurisdictions do is that instead of actually pulling people over, they have worked to like minimize interaction with the police. And instead, what they would do is take down the person's registration plate and send them a letter in the mail and say, you have 30 days to get your headlight fixed or you'll get a citation. You have 60 days to get your registration plate up to par or you'll get a ticket. So doing things like that so the law can still be enforced, but then I guess eliminate any harmful contact and, you know, disproportionate in number of stops as well. And we have seen a number of jurisdictions take up a version of this as well, including Virginia, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Oregon, and the San Francisco Police Department. Early data from Philadelphia showed that after the reform, police were more purposeful with their investigation. and both the actual number of weapons and the rate of weaponry recovery from traffic stops increase. So it's a win-win, right? Because what police really want to do is actually curb crime, and what civilians want is for their communities to be safer as well. And so when you are actually stopping people because you suspect that criminal activity is taking place, that's when you actually find that's when you actually recover weapons and things like that. And third, we are calling to end suspicionless consent searches during traffic stops. As we noted early, that the nature of a police interaction does not mean that consent given may be truly voluntary. And so to prevent this fishing expedition, this policy will require law enforcement to have a independent legal basis to search before asking consent to search a person, their vehicle, or their belongings during the traffic stops. We also seen places like Connecticut, Rhode Island, and the San Francisco Police Department pass a version of this. And so basically, in plain terms, what that means is if a police officer pulls you over because they suspect that you are participating in some kind of criminal activity, then they have the right to ask for consent. But if they're pulling you over for a minor traffic violation, and they do not suspect a reason for any criminal activity to take place, then they cannot ask for consent to search the vehicle. But we believe that a combination of these three policies will really create a holistic approach to creating a more racially equitable system for traffic safety. We have been talking with the Community Commission for Public Safety and advocating for the commission to actually pass this policy with their new power to actually introduce policy and work with CPD to create this. And so we have been really doing a lot of groundwork to talk to communities about this issue so that we can get more individuals and constituents into the conversation. And that's what CCPSA is all about, is making sure that community voices are uplifted and you hear from community members. And so we've been in numerous conversations with Adam and some of the other commissioners, and we've talked to at least, I would say, 10 district counselors. Right now we have 5 district councils who have signed on to the Freedom Move platform. District 5, District 17, District 20. District 12, District 5, District 20. 17 is voting on the 22nd. I'm missing one. I can send this as a follow-up. But we really want this to make sure that we have community input. And so we hope to continue working with you, Adam, and the commissioners on this, and would love to answer any questions folks have. But I really appreciate you all being here, inviting me to also present.
So actually I have 2 questions. The first one is, if 15th district is number 4 in police stops, so what's number 1?
Oh, number 1? Let me check. I believe it was like the 5th or 9th, yeah. Let me check. Number 1 is the 7th district, and number 2 is the 11th district. Number 3 is the 4th district, and then number 4 is the 15th. The 5th is the District 25.
Okay. Huh?
25, right next door to-
And 1.
Yeah.
So it's 11.
So
Brian
all
was
south
number-
side and west side, yeah.
So then the other question, I don't know if I really understood some of what you're saying, but I guess I was wondering if, you know, the part where you were saying, if police officers, okay, about the stops, and instead of whatever it was, just letting people know, well, you have a light out, and we're gonna send you something in the mail to say you need to get your light fixed. So if they don't stop the person, how is that accomplished?
Yeah, that's a great question. How we've seen other jurisdictions handle it is that the police officer would write down the license
License
plate
plate.
of that person whose headlight, tail light, or registration plate was expired, and send them a letter in the mail that says your,
And no interaction with that person.
exactly.
So is that the same thing that a camera could pick up? Huh?
Oh, what you say, ma'am?
Says that the same thing, huh?
A license plate reader, AR.
Yeah, I'm saying, okay, so you're just saying if the police officers drive behind somebody that doesn't have a thing, so they just sitting in their car, so we
Mhm.
get this license plate and this person, we can send them a letter. And I guess I was wondering, is that something that, you know, all these traffic light things that we got, the cameras,
Red light.
Yeah,
red light cameras or whatever cameras, yeah.
yeah. I'm not sure, but that's a really interesting question. We can definitely look into it.
They can
To
start
see if
getting
there are
your
other
tickets,
tools
so that
available.
same thing that says you just went through there and you got a
Yeah.
ticket, you know, it can read license plates, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine they would probably have something in place, and then if you don't get it fixed, maybe the second
Right.
time,
Yeah.
then you probably will be issued a citation as opposed to
Mhm.
if that officer just gives it,
Right.
utilizes
But,
discretion.
right, that was just the point,
They
that there's no
probably won't
interaction,
get anything.
there's no interaction with the police
But
officer.
sometimes-
That's-
Yeah,
okay.
and if they don't want the interaction, but
Right.
I'm sure there'll be a way that
Yes,
they will
Technology
probably,
being what it
they
is,
will
so-
get a citation
Yeah.
eventually. So that might, I don't know, then,
Yeah.
I'm just assuming, I don't know how they work it in other states,
Mhm.
but it. So that they probably would get cited eventually, I would imagine, if they don't comply.
Thank you so much for the question. I wrote that down so that we can look into it. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna stop, police, I don't, I think most of the communities I talk to, they don't have a problem with police stopping with problem cause. The biggest problem in our community, people get stopped without problem cause. Person got a light on them,
Yeah.
that's problem cause. I don't have a problem. Two, when they stop various people, the problem is the policeman have to get permission to search the car. That's fine, with me. But for an officer that is totally disregard that person's personal property, careless, take the seats and everything out, that's another problem that the community is having.
Yeah.
Per se, because with the, as long as they have probable cause, if you stop someone and someone's legal, they got a driver's license, work, that's not like that. Because in the same breath, if that person gets stopped and has a weapon, unauthorized, to have it, or something like that, that's gonna cure the crime. Yeah. And I will tell you an incident that I had with the police.
Yeah.
I was coming out. And I got in my car. And a gentleman ran across the street, said he thought I was a living man, right? At the same time, I was in a protective state, so therefore, I was able to cure it. But what I'm saying though is, as soon as he said that, car came around the corner, he jumps in on the back seat. I called. When he jumped in on the back seat, I knew at that point he had intention of carjacking. So anyway, I called the police. Get the license plate. Needed, I followed them. And I'm telling the police and the dispatch that this person, at that same point, I had seen the gun on that particular person.
Yeah.
Asked for a squad car, for them to send a squad car to meet me at this road and a gun.
Yeah.
The dispatch tells me, now I'm a witness all of this, I tell them. The dispatch tells me, well, you stay for town, go back home, we can't send a squad car. Now. By me being alert, I avoided this.
Yeah.
So with these three dudes, I know probably the statistic, that particular car did arrive on Sunday. So sometimes when the community thinks enough to call the police and tell them to witness crime or something like that. The dispatch, some of those dispatches, I don't know if they go on by protocol. But at that same time, they don't send a squad car. So, the community is engaged. They call people. They call the police department. But at the same time, on the other end of it, those dispatch that receive that call, then you have a problem. Same way, like sometimes people's in the community that they'll call 911, then they call the local station. Sometimes even on that local station, they don't get the dispatch per se, because then whoever's on that desk in the station, they tell you, well, you gotta call 911. So there's a lot of miscommunication that they need to improve as well.
There is, and I'll just say, there is, a call comes in, a call taker takes that call, the call taker then sends it to dispatch will then give it to us. So there's sometimes that they will, and I'm not trying, everyone has a purpose. So, but sometimes depending on the priority of that call or the safety of that individual, the dispatcher will decide to hand that call out. They sometimes will not give us, by the time the officers get a call, sometimes depending on how busy that district is, for maybe 30-40 minutes or long. Obviously, if it's something within like a life or death situation, that's getting a priority one, we're getting that out right away. Your situation was very, very important, and that's something we definitely would love to follow up on. I mean, we have a relationship, but something like that, I mean, we absolutely would want that information, and it is very important. And I apologize that you didn't get that type of service for someone to come. I don't know the circumstances, but we do indeed want that information is very, very important. But they do sometimes we don't know for how long the call has been, we can, you know, unless we check, and that's unfortunate. And there is sometimes a little bit of that disconnect, but that's them trying to prioritize the most like life and death first, and then like there's priority 1, 2, 3, you know, and safety is always, you know, our utmost importance. But sometimes there might be a little bit of a, you know, they're just worried about like right now, are you safe? And probably didn't mean that, or, you know, but we do, well, your information, that is very, very important if you had something like that. So we, I mean, you could call the station with that, but we also, you would want to report as well, so an officer should have came.
Right, well, you know, I can understand the priority one, like, you know, coming down, don't have a problem.
But everybody reports, so don't be problem. There's a very important situation, robberies or.
This dispatch. Say, where maybe whoever is in charge, I don't think.
Yeah.
We have another meeting with them, because he likes to see us, and he'll send a squad. As soon as you get or someone is told, you go to the dispatch, the police department.
Yeah.
For early turn off that, I think OEM should get involved.
Yeah.
And we have a class with their dispatch and their call, because most of the time, the call taking from district, you be the police, you won't know.
Yeah.
And actually, depends on which way they handle that call. That could determine whether a crime is committed or someone loses their life. So that is the.
But please, always, everyone, please always call, always call 911, please. I encourage everyone to do that, because you guys are our eyes and ears, and we very much encourage it. And if it's something like that, you're not even, please do call the station, they will disseminate it. I mean, I even talked to the commander about this. I mean, it's very important for us, especially now, something like that, that license plate is huge, you know, very good information. And I'm sorry that you. Okay. Huh?
Yeah, I'm maybe that for a second. We got one last person.
Yes, sorry.
No, I'll do it. So thank you. The CCPSA and, you know, that's the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. And essentially that is the umbrella under which the district council serve under alongside the community commission. Well, there's a person that sits at the very head of that and runs it all that will break it down for us. So those folks that are new to the CCPSA can understand the mission and what we all hope to accomplish, whether it's us in our 4 years or the community commission and their staggered terms that they'll serve. And so Adam Gross is the person that is proud to lead. So We're gonna come on down and explain what the CCPSA is.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
I'm Adam Gross. I'm the Executive Director of the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. It's kind of confusing because there are two things called the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, and they're related, but they're different. So a few years ago, the City Council passed an ordinance creating one thing called the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, which is a citywide commission made up of 7 people whose job is to oversee the police department, COPA, the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, and the police board. That same ordinance also created district councils, got your 3 district council members here. And a third thing that that ordinance did was it created a new City of Chicago department, also called the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. And the job of that new department is to provide support to the district councils and the citywide commission. So I am not a part of the appointed Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. I'm part of the government department, the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, that supports the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability and the district council. Is that totally clear?
Yes.
It's super straightforward, makes a ton of sense.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So Councilmember Rudis asked me to talk a little bit about my background, my role with the commission, and a bit about what I would like to accomplish. So my background, I grew up in Chicago. I have spent almost my entire life here. I have 3 kids. 2 of them are in college. Like crazy in like 5 minutes. And before coming to the Community Commission 2 years ago, I spent the 27 years before that working for the organization that's now called Impact for Equity. So that organization is a public interest law and policy organization. So it's made up of lawyers and non-lawyers who work on legal issues and policy issues. The vast majority of that work is in support of community-based organizations and community-based coalitions. And it focuses on a range of issues. So I spent about 10 years while I was there working on public housing issues, working mostly with public housing residents on the south side and west side, especially on the west side, supporting residents who were developing jobs programs and childcare programs, after-school programs, community newspaper, public safety initiatives, lots of stuff like that in support of community residents. I spent another bunch of years working more broadly on affordable housing issues across the state. I spent several years then working on juvenile justice issues statewide, and then my last 7 years or so were focused on police accountability, and a lot of that work was with the coalitions that were working to create the district councils and the community commission. And so when finally, after a very long process of developing that ordinance and advocating for it, when that ordinance passed, I think my punishment for that was I was hired to work for the city department, the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. The Community Commission is set up to be about as independent as a body can be while still being a part of city government. And that works a couple ways. So when I was hired, for example, I was hired by Mayor Lightfoot because there wasn't yet another way to hire me. The idea that was built into the ordinance was they wanted to get some sort of basic infrastructure in place so that once the commission was created and once the district councils were created, there would be some staff in place that could help support them. So I was hired by Mayor Lightfoot. Once I was hired, Mayor Lightfoot could not fire me because I am directly accountable to the citywide Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. So I'm a government employee. We have a staff that comes, and we have a budget that comes from taxpayer dollars. But it is the Community Commission that has the power to fire me and replace me. I'm directly accountable to them. They, in a lot of ways, are directly accountable to the district councils, who then nominate members to serve on the citywide commissions. Councilmember Winters was talking about before. So we are, unlike the vast majority of city departments, we're not doing our own independent work. We exist to support the commission and the district councils. So everything that we do is in support of what they do. So I could talk to you about what my goals are, what my interests are. Really what they are in this context is to make sure that the district councils have the support that they need to succeed and that the commission has the support that it needs to succeed. We exist to serve them. So like our policy preferences, for example, as individuals don't make a difference. Our work is driven by what commissioners direct us to do and what district council members direct us to do. By the end of next year, we'll have a staff of 29 people. The majority of that staff, like my colleague Isaiah, are there to serve the district councils, because there are 66 district council members, 22 district councils. It's the biggest, most complicated, and I would say most important part of this whole new setup. And so we're working to build out that support, and as you've heard a couple times today, it's all very new and we're all still kind of figuring it out. But my job is defined by what they want us to do. My job day to day is doing things like hiring and supervising the staff and making certain that the work that we all do is driven by what the members of the commission and the district councils want us to do, making certain that that system is set up in a way that provides that support, where we're hearing what we need to hear from district council members and commissioners, and make certain that they're keeping us in check and ensuring that we're doing what we're supposed to do. That's a high level overview. I'm happy to talk any more about either the district councils or the commission, any of the work to create those things, anything about the staff, but happier to have a conversation than just talk at you. So council members, anyone else questions or thoughts?
I have a few questions, and this is just my ignorance of, you know, this is like a new need, like the commission. I guess I got 3 questions. What policies have the commission already passed? Is my first question.
So let me just give a little bit of background about the commission and policy. So the ordinance that created the commission does something that is really unusual anywhere in the world. It's not totally unique, but it's very rare. And it puts a significant amount of policymaking in the hands of this civilian body. Pretty much every place on the planet, police department policy is developed internally within a police department and is enacted by a police department. There are very few places where there is much role for people outside the police department in policy making. What the ordinance that created the commission does is give a very significant role to the commission in setting certain police department policies. So policies called general orders, which are a lot of the most important high-level policies that govern lots of what the police department does. So there are other things called special orders, which get into some of the more detailed work that the police department does. And the police department has authority to do special orders on its own without the commission. But every special order is basically subject to a bigger general order. So the commission is able to use its authority over general orders if it wanted to have an impact on special orders. So through that power over general orders, it can have lots of authority over CPD policy generally. There's one big exception, which is any policy that's covered by the consent decree, which is a lot of policies and a lot of very significant policies happen outside of this system. And that's just because the consent decree was there before the commission was created, and the consent decree set up its own process for developing policies. And you couldn't create this new body and change that thing that a court had already approved and that a system had been created for. And under the consent decree, there's a lot of community engagement built in. So it's not like you've got community engagement through the commission process and not under the consent decree process. There's a ton of community engagement through the consent decree process. So the commission has the authority to make general orders on subjects that aren't covered by the consent decree. And let me say one more thing about the process before getting directly to your point, Joy, to your question. And that is that the ordinance specifies that the commission has to develop policies in close collaboration with the police department. So this isn't the commission coming in without relevant expertise, sort of doing its own thing. It is required by ordinance to engage with the police department very closely. And I would say the experience in other cities that have anything like this, where you have that level of power that exists outside the police department, is if you have a body that is setting police department policy and they are making policies like over the objection of the police department, that just has not worked well. So where you see this working effectively, it is a lot of engagement over a long time to hammer out policies where what the police department is open to may change over time, but the goal is to land on a policy that is going to have commission support, community support, and police department support. But that process isn't something that existed before, and the outcome we think will be really different. So Joy, your question was, what policies have they handled? Sorry, one last thing about the process, and that is under the ordinance, the commission has the authority on its own to develop a policy. It also is required anytime the police department proposes its own general order to work with the police department on that. So the commission could be working on policies that started with the police department. It can be working on policies that it generated on its own. And the commission so far has worked on 2 policies, one of which started with the police department, one of which started with the commission. The one that started with the police department is a general order about associations. So this is about the rules that come into place when members of the police department are associating with different kinds of organizations. And this became a big deal as information came out that there were members of the police department who were participating in various ways in hate groups, in racist groups. And the police department basically said they didn't have strong enough policies in place and clear enough policies in place to impose appropriate discipline in those cases. And so the police department developed a new policy which was to have clearer rules about what kind of association is appropriate, what's inappropriate, what the consequences are for, and what the consequences are for engaging with certain kinds of organizations. So there was back and forth for months with the commission, hammering out the what that precise language would be. I think it's a very productive collaboration, an example of the kind of thing, the way that this can work. So there was full CPD support and full commission support for the policy that they ultimately landed on. A little over 2 months ago, the commission formally passed this policy, which then sets in motion another process where the mayor, if the mayor wants, can basically reject the policy, and then that sets in motion something else. So we're in that period now where the mayor has an opportunity to review the policy. And if the mayor says nothing about it, we don't have any reason to believe that the mayor's going to do anything to change it. At the end of like a 90-day period, that policy will go into effect. The other policy that the commission worked on was something that it developed on its own, and it developed this policy on its own in response to an action that that CPD under a previous superintendent took with regard to the gang database. So there had for many years been a lot of complaints about how the gang database was used. A lot of evidence that there were a lot of people who were included in the gang database who shouldn't have been there, including very, very young people, very, very old people, people who wound up in the database without good reasons. There wasn't a lot of transparency about who was in it, and once you were in it, it was very difficult to get out of it. The police department, and so there's a lot of community concern about this policy for a long time, and the police department has made changes to the rules that they want to use to govern the collection of information about gang activity. And what the police department tried to do under an earlier superintendent, who is no longer the superintendent, was make a change to the rules governing the collection of information about gang activity and pass that as a special order instead of a general order. And passing it as a special order means the commission can't touch it. And what the commission wanted to say was, we're not expressing an opinion right now about what the database should be and how this data should be managed, how the police department should use it. We're just saying that if the police department is going to make policy about the collection of gang data and about the use of gang data, that that there should be a role for the commission, that this is the kind of thing that the commission was created to do, to ensure that there's meaningful community input in the development of these kinds of policies. So, Joy, to your question, the commission passed a general order that says, if CPD is making policy like this about the collection of gang data, the maintenance of gang data, the use of gang data, it has to be in a general order. So again, it's not, the commission wasn't in this case saying, CPD, here's what you need to do with when you're collecting this data. It's just saying, if you're going to make changes to this policy, it's got to be in a general order, which means you'll have to work with us. And that policy passed several months ago and is now in effect.
Thank you so much, guys. You answered my second question already about the process. My last question is, what is your role in the implementation policy?
Sorry,
What is your role in the process of the commission creating policy and implementing policy?
So what is my role personally?
as a staffer with the commission, like with CCPSA? What is your role in the commission passing policy?
So I'm ultimately responsible for all the staff. We've got a staff that focuses on policy to provide support to the commission and district councils. When they're developing or reviewing policy.
So your team writes the policy?
So it depends, like in the case of the, where we changed the general order about the collection of gang data. Yes, we drafted that in collaboration with commissioners.
Yeah.
So there's lots of back and forth between initially between the staff and members of the commission to develop something that the commission wanted. And then we also do lots of work, like when there is all the back and forth with CPD, we're also providing staff support for that. So I personally participate in a lot of that because I'm really interested in it, but my primary job is overseeing the staff who are doing that and making certain that they're doing their jobs in support of the commission and district council.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
Well, listen, we want to thank Adam for coming and sharing his institutional knowledge of CCPSA. Very, you cleared me up.
So who was the person at last month's meeting that,
David Smith?
okay,
Yeah, he's the director of the district councils, the deputy director of the district councils.
Okay.
So he makes sure that all of our needs are being met, so he supports us, and I believe that he also is. He's my direct supervisor. Right,
so who are you, I mean, what is your role?
my role is to support us. Support them.
You're a city employee also?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, library just told us.
Yeah, yeah, we got time, yeah.
It is, so, let's just. How much time do you need?
I just wanna read through them, but just real quick, so we're gonna have to hold a special meeting. Which we can do, or January, we're gonna have to dedicate our meeting to the 15th district, basically creating a strategic plan. Because right now, to do our work, to hold police accountable, we have nothing in place. And so I'm working on something called AIM, Accountability Improvement Methods. And I'm just gonna go through them real quick because we wrapping up, but next month, community has to come back together because I need community's help and kind of deciding like what we should be working on, what we should be thinking about, and then creating the methodology of how to put these things in place. One being a community mediation program. Right now, COPA has a community mediation program, a mediation program through the Center for Conflict Resolution. But a lot of times when we make complaints to COPA, especially if they consider it to be something minuscule, it never gets addressed. But if it's in the hands of community, especially now that we have district councils, say for instance, if you had that incident and you filed a complaint with us, you may not want to, do any legal ramification or anything like that. You may just want to talk to the officer and process it and why this happened or this could have happened. That could be something that we can do in-house.
Right.
We can have that same organization that works with COPA train community members on how to be mediators. And that's also a way to build trust with our officers, because now you're communicating with them one-on-one and hashing things out. And then the other thing, CPD is supposed to be doing something called positive community interactions, where we need to have these interactions with communities, we're supposed to fill out this paperwork. But in the independent monitor report, they are saying that they are not completing these reports. So this is a form of community engagement, but it's information that we're missing. And I'm saying, take this out of the hands of the police department and put it in the hands of community members. Let us complete, if we had a positive community interaction with an officer, but not just positive, we also want to know if we had a negative community interaction with the police officer. And then, I think we should do a quarterly report card. Whether we looking at, arrest rates, clearance rates, as well as their engagement. And this comes up a lot in our meetings, and I know, Mr. Johnson brought this up also about beat engagement, about officers getting out their cars and engaging with community members. But from a community perspective, we should be the ones creating what we want this to look like for our officers. How do we want them engaging with our community members? And then the other one, this is called Mindful Mondays. One of the things that we're talking about, even inside the consent decree, is officer wellness. And this is something that Superintendent Snelling is big on. And I'm saying something as simple as on Monday, our officers just checking in, whether it's with a religious leader, a life coach, or somebody, because if they're not mentally stable, emotionally stable, and they're interacting with people in the community who may not be mentally stable, emotionally stable, that's a very toxic situation.
Sure.
And anything can happen in a situation like that. So if they are mentally healthy, I think they have a better chance at dealing with community members in a more holistic way. Community teach-ins, allowing organizations that are in our community to do teach-ins with our officers to help them become more culturally aware and culturally sensitive to what is going on in the world around them, and not who they pick and choose. The department is very good. We always call them the bloody cheerleaders. They're very good at engaging people that they already have like relationships with. Like maybe Black Lives Matter should do a training with our police officers. Maybe Impact for Equity should do a training with our police officers, right? To help them fully understand, you know, other things outside of who they're picking and choosing. But this work is also not just us being punitive. And I think a lot of district councils are going into this work. How do we punish them when they're doing something wrong? These are our community members as well. And so I was thinking about something called Radical Welcome Wednesday. Once a month, doing something for our officers. A Radical Welcome is providing our officers with a safe, nurturing, and supportive space to give hope, receive care, and connect ideas. And that can happen through the roll calls. And then just say we need to figure out a way to get some engagement data. But next month when we come back, we're gonna go back over these, we're gonna rank them. We're gonna maybe even introduce some other ideas and then start talking about a timeline. Cause everything is about trial and error right now. We gotta try something. We gotta put it out there and try it. And I already said I want the 15th district to become the pilot. We want to be the first one to do it and to do it well. And so when we come back next month, we're gonna kind of unpack these things and prioritize these things and see which thing will be the first thing that we'll roll out. So that's what we're gonna do next month for January.
Wonderful.
Listen,
We have the sentinel at the door. We have to be out of here by 8 o'clock, but that being stated, you know, but there's one second, there's one very important thing that we must do before we leave, because this is what we represent. We understand, we'll be gone by 8. Thank you. The 15th district has a resolution, Sergeant with the Officer Villanueva, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Medina.
Officer Medina, can you guys come up, please? The 15th district has a resolution. Now, for those of you that do not know it, we lost an officer who was a probationary officer who had just transferred to 15th district. He died as a result of his injuries on a car crash on 95th Street. So resolution for Officer Edwin Espinoza. Our place here on earth is limited for the day we are born until the day we will make our transition. May there be comfort in knowing that an officer so special will never be forgotten. Whereas all members of the 15th District Council are expressing their sympathy and condolences to his family and friends, community, and department members, we would like for you to know that you will always be in our prayers. Whereas Edwin Espinoza is a true servant of God for helping his family, friends, community, and department members, and willing to assist those in need in order to serve and protect us. Whereas the 15th District Chicago Police Department, district, will carry on his legacy of service and will always be remembered by his family, friends, community, and department members. To family, friends, community, and department members, we share your sorrow, and we will include him in our prayers as we do for our own families. Humbly submitted this day to the Chicago Police Department's 15th District and acknowledged by Commander Carlin Morse on this 12th day of December 2023 by DC Councils Earls, Rudis, and Winters. We present this resolution, and a copy will be given to you and a copy will be kept in our particular minutes. We're so sorry, but we thank you for your service.
So with that, I motion to end our meeting.
Thank you.
I'm motion to end the meeting. Second.
Sorry,
I motion to end the meeting.
oh, I'm sorry, I missed it, I was too busy.
Yeah, no worries.
Council Rudis had made a motion to end the meeting, Council Winters has seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
We have something on the way out, let's
Alright.
keep our.
Thank y'all, and happy holidays to you all.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
Thank you all for coming out. You know what, I think it will, we'll probably, we'll send it out, because we still have to plan that one, but if nothing else, it'll probably be here. Yeah,
Sorry.
just make it easy and come back here.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
For bombarding me with questions.
Thanks for joining tonight, brother.